Yo, welcome back, Dental Lighthouse Podcast. It's a Saturday morning. I just had the whole week off. We spent it down at the lake, and haven't didn't check email all week. Um, really tried to stay away from my phone. So when I did check email and my phone and text messages and DMs on Facebook and stuff like that, I was blessed to see a number of questions from some private coaching clients and people that listen to the podcast. Just really good questions. Just like, Jason, what would you do here? Jason, what would you do there? And realizing that there's no right answer to anything. There's just what works for me. I thought I'd spend some time today unpacking what some of the questions were, and then just answering them as honestly and as transparently as I can. So the first question comes from someone that I have been working with one-on-one, that is trying to increase his hourly production. And the reason that he's trying to increase his hourly production, really the reason anyone's trying to increase their hourly production, is it gives them freedom. It makes choices available to them. So the two obvious choices are I can increase my hourly production to make more money and the same hours uh, worked per week, or I can increase my hourly production and make the same amount of money in less time. And that's what most of my clients ultimately want to move towards. They work 4 days a week and they're getting to that point where maybe their kids are getting to a certain age where they want to spend more time with them, or they've come to the realization that they've put some personal relationships on the back burner. They've come to the realization that they need to spend more time working on the business in a CEO role versus in the business as a provider. Um, so, but they've developed this lifestyle based on their income, and it's difficult, although sometimes possible, but it's difficult to reduce your clinical hours and take an income hit, um, and not have it rock the boat. So what we try to do is how can we increase our hourly clinical efficiency so you can go from 3 days, I'm sorry, from 4 days to 3 days. Um, and now you have freedom in this additional day to do things personally, professionally, what have you, but keep your income the same. So in this particular situation, the doc, one of the strategies that we had talked about to increase his hourly production was to limit the amount of fillings that he was doing on a regular basis. So there'd be some days where he'd have 6, 7, 8 filling appointments. And as we all know, filling appointments can be extremely taxing mentally. They can be extremely taxing physically. And then at the end of the day, when you've done 6, 7, 8 filling appointments, you feel like you got ran over by a truck. And you look at the end of day sheet expecting it to be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in production. And you take a knife like right here when you look at the actual production from that day, and it's a fraction of what you thought it should be. It's a how you, based on how you feel, you thought you produced tens of thousands of dollars, and you look at this report and it's $2,500, and you're just like, oh my gosh. So if you're a solo doc, you can't just stop doing fillings. Well, I guess you could, but that's not good for anybody. So what do? You start to develop systems where you limit the amount of filling appointments that you're going to do on a daily basis. And what this does for you is a number of things. I'll just briefly talk about that. It allows you to be more productive on an hourly basis, because assuming that you have a skill set that allows for other things like endo, crown and bridge, cosmetics, Invisalign, it frees up your emergencies, turning a toothache into endo buildup crown. It gives you some capacity within the day to do these things. That's first and foremost. Secondly, it saves your mental and physical well-being because you're not running a ragged with a day of 7, 8, 9 filling appointments. So, what I'm coaching this particular person up on is implementing a system that's going to limit the amount of direct filling appointments that he has throughout the day. Now, everybody's different, right? So, well, how many is that, Jason? It's really different. It depends on your situation. Depends on your demand. How booked out are you? Depends on your skill set. Do you do tons of surgery? Do you do tons of crown and bridge? Do you do tons of cosmetics? If all you do is fillings, like if that's what your skill set is allowing you to do, single unit crowns and fillings. I don't do surgery. I don't do implants. I don't do endo. Then that's another conversation that you and I need to have, right? You can't limit the filling procedures if that's all you do, right? Different conversation for a different day. But if you have a skill set that allows you to do other things and that allows you to be more productive with other things, then you need to figure out a way, you need to develop a system to limit the amount of filling appointments that you have in a day. So in this particular situation, we settled on 2 filling appointments in the morning and 1 filling appointment in the afternoon. And if we can develop a system that allows us to limit our day to 2 filling appointments in the morning and 1 filling appointment in the afternoon, I had assured this particular doctor that we would see an increase in hourly production, which would start the ball rolling to give him some freedom, give him some choices to see how we want to move forward. So, a couple things. First off, we have to define filling appointment. Okay. So, in this particular context, we defined a filling appointment as only direct fillings, 1 surface, 2 surface, 3 surface, 4 surface fillings, and limiting them to 3 per day. Okay. 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. The front desk had the autonomy to slide the appointments up or down. So in the schedule, there was one at say 8 o'clock, one at 11 o'clock, and one at 3 o'clock. But if the patient had to come in earlier, you could take that 3 o'clock appointment and slide it up to two. Um, so that was kind of the framework here. And the fear that I always get from docs and staff is, well, what if I can't fill it with, what if I can't fill the other things with um, crowns and surgery and more productive stuff? So, depending on your comfort level, we would always set up a parameter that if you get to 48 hours before this particular scheduled day um, and it's not filled, then you can fill it with whatever you want, or you can fill it with more restorative, you can fill it with um, other things. So that was the system that we had implemented with this guy, and that's a system that I've used personally. It's a system that I've used with a lot of my own associates that are looking to become either more productive or that are looking to get a reprieve from the mental and physical taxation of fillings all day. The system works, just like all systems work when there's checks and balances and accountabilities set up. So this particular doctor set up the system, but then reached out to me and said, um, my team's not following the system. Like, how do I keep my team accountable to following the system that I'm trying to implement? Good question, right? And this question can be used for any system, right? So the first thing that I always go back to is the why. Why are we doing this? And first and foremost, the doctor needs to have clarity with the why. I am choosing to implement this system because dot, 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 right? And that why can be really anything. It doesn't matter. Like if the doctor truly believes in this and this is why he wants it to happen, great. You need to communicate that to the rest of the team. So in this particular situation, what's the why? Well, the why is couplefold. I have to get away from days that are nonstop, back to back filling appointments because it is mentally exhausting, it's physically exhausting. If this was me having the conversation, I would say I go home to my family and I'm not the person that I want to be. I go home, I walk in the door, I kick the dog, I roll my eyes at my wife, have some fun with it. But the reality is this is true. Any of you guys that have done 6, 7, 8, 9 filling appointments in a day, that's how you feel. Like you're just exhausted. You get home and you just want to collapse on the couch. Okay. So the first part of my why is I am not um, proud of the person that I am when I have days like that. I'm not proud of the person that I am after work. So for that reason, I need to change something. That's a great why. Another why is I am realizing that we're busy and there's things that are falling through the cracks in this office. I'm the leader, I'm the owner. I need to dedicate time to fixing those things, to solving for those things. And I currently don't have the time to do that now. So if I can figure out a way to become a little bit more efficient on an hourly basis or a daily basis, then it'll buy me a half day per week, 3/4 of a day per week, a full day per week to really spend time working on the business and ultimately getting something in place that is better for everyone involved. That's a good why. Again, you could whatever. Another great why would be my patients are not getting the best version of me when they're the fourth or fifth or sixth restorative appointment in that day. And I'm doing dentistry that I'm not 100% proud of. And that's not good. Like that goes against everything that I stand for. So I have the ability to change that. And that's what I'm going to do. So those are three simple whys I just came up with off the top of my head. You have to figure out what your why is. The worst thing ever is to implement a system and just tell your team, do it or else. Do it because I said so. I'm being a little over the top here, but you know what I mean. Like if you don't share with your team why you're doing something, it's going to be extremely difficult to keep them accountable. So again, that's the first thing. If you do a great job of communicating the why, then everything else seems to fall into place. But in this particular example, let's assume that he shared one or two or three of his whys, and let's assume that the system is still not being followed. What else can this person do? Well, you set up a system of checks and balances through in our organization checklist. So in this particular situation, I'm going to just creating a fictitious example. Let's say that we have limited the restorative appointments to, or filling appointments to 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And let's say you've been crystal clear with the team that these appointments can be moved up and down and they are not to be added to unless you are within a 48-hour window. So whenever Mrs. Jones gets to the front desk and 14 MO was just diagnosed out of hygiene, you find her the first filling appointment that's available. And that may be 3, 4, 5 weeks out. It because you've already scheduled 3 restorative appointments for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, right? Mrs. Jones, our next available appointment to schedule this filling with Dr. X is in 4 weeks at 8 a.m. I'm going to put you in that spot. If I get a cancellation, I will call you and I will move you up. It is what it is, right? So that's part of the system. The other part of the system from a checks and balances perspective is the doctor should be looking at the schedule 3 days ahead and 1 week ahead. And again, whatever timeline fits the whatever you're trying to do here. But I would be looking at the schedule 1 week ahead and making sure that there's no more than 3 restorative appointments scheduled. And if there is, then I'm walking right up to the front desk having a minute meeting. You guys know how I feel about minute meetings, and saying, hey, Sally, I'm going over my schedule for a week from now, and I see that there's 5 restorative appointments. Do you not understand why we limit it to 3? Were you unaware that we are limiting it to 3? You're asking these questions from a position of curiosity and empathy because you don't want to assume that she's trying to manipulate you. You want to assume that she's trying her best and there was an error in understanding. She didn't quite understand the system. She didn't quite understand the why. Whatever it is, what an opportunity for you to over communicate this now. So at your end of day, you're looking out a week, and at your end of day, I'm looking out, say, 2 days or 3 days. If I look out 2 days and I see that there's 3 restorative appointments, but the rest of the schedule is open, then based on the system that we put into place, okay, we're within a 48-hour window. We can now add additional restorative appointments to the schedule. That's not ideal, but what's even less than ideal is open time. So maybe your window is 48 hours, maybe your window is 24 hours. It just depends on how many other services you're able to provide. It depends on how in demand that your skills are, your schedule, how far out you're booking. But typically anywhere from 24 to 72 hours ahead, all bets are off, so to speak. But when you do these things, when you set up these levels of checks and balances and you have the courage, you've developed the character, we've talked about this in our servant leadership courses, to go into the storm and have a minute meeting from a position of love and curiosity and empathy and say, hey, Mary, like we talked about this at the last meeting, this is the system, this is why the system's in place. But when I look at the schedule a week from now, I see that there's 6 restorative appointments instead of the 3 that we talked about. Help me understand why that is, right? And you'll get something like, well, Mrs. Jones was insistent. Like, so again, we need to coach up our team and say, well, we need to let Mrs. Jones know that when she's the 4th or 5th restorative appointment of that day, like I'm not at my best. I'm going to provide a level of service that's inferior to what I normally do. And that's just not fair to me. That's not fair to Mrs. Jones. And for that reason, we limit this. Or again, always going back to the why. So I hope that, and I'll share this video with the doc that I'm talking about, and it'll lead to more questions, and I'll share with you guys. But that's basically the framework of if you're gonna set up something, have total clarity on the why. Why are you setting this up? Why are you implementing a system? As soon as you see the wheels coming off, assume it's because there's a error in understanding. Assume that the team that you have wants to do the best that they possibly can. Okay. So if you have a team that wants to do the best they possibly can, that fully understands the why, and they're still making the mistake, then it was an error in understanding. You, as the leader, failed to communicate the why, failed to communicate the system clearly enough, which is okay. We're all human. What an opportunity to now coach this person up and say, hey, on my end of day checklist, I'm supposed to look at the schedule a week out. I did. I saw these problems. Help me understand, what's occurring here. Help me understand what you don't quite understand, because I want to get this cleared up, so we can move forward. And then you can ultimately do what is in the best interest of the office, best interest of me, best interest of the patients. So. All right, guys, good stuff. I'm going to go through a few more of these. I'll probably create a few more videos today. But I appreciate you listening. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, concerns. We'll have to do another live recording here soon. But love you guys. Talk soon.